All right, let's move on. Jimmy Butler is slated to meet with the Timberwolves and coach Tom Thibodeau and general manager Scott Layden. They'll all discuss today the future of this particular team and Jimmy's future on it. The meeting's expected to set this tone with the upcoming free agency coming up this summer for Jimmy. So our own Woj reports that the relationship between Jimmy Butler and Karl-Anthony Towns is a bit strained. So Jackie, should the Timberwolves trade Butler at some point this season?
I mean, if he tells you, hey, I'm not coming back no matter what, then I guess you have to trade him. But I'm going to try to make this work if I'm Tibbs. And I feel for Tibbs, to be honest. He took on Jimmy Butler. He's been he's been on Team Jimmy all along. And all of a sudden, Butler's going in 800 different directions. But you do have a problem if those two, Butler and Towns, have issues. That's a major problem for your franchise. I'm not actively trading Jimmy Butler unless he tells me I'm gone, get rid of me.
Brian, it seems like that Karl-Anthony Towns not signing his extension could potentially be tied into this?
First off, let me just say this. Jackie, you've been around the NBA a long time. Why would this discussion being had September 17th?
It's a great point.
Unless he wants to be traded.
Well, Karl Towns has known he's going to be a free agent this entire summer.
Right.
His extension. Butler turned down the extension months ago, his extension, so they knew that he wasn't committing. Why is this now on the eve of training camp? In fact, all the guys are now in. All the players are generally in.
Yeah.
Right.
By the way, the Wolves weren't one of those teams that had that big kumbaya, let's go to San Diego, Miami, the Bahamas.
Yeah.
That was noticeable.
Yeah.
And what's so unfortunate about this is that they had such great momentum. They finally made the playoffs, broke their 13-year drought. They had a terrible playoff series. Towns did not play well in that playoff series.
No.
And now we have this false start here. So my first thing is, why is this discussion happening this late in the calendar? Secondly, if this is a situation where you've got to choose between Butler and Towns, most people, if you went out there and took a blind draw, would say, well, you take Towns. He's a big guy. He plays, he's younger, 6 years younger.
Yep.
But the guy making the decision, the team president, is maybe the biggest Jimmy Butler fan in the NBA, and Tom Thibodeau. So this is an extremely difficult situation.
Crazy.
I don't think that there's an easy answer here, Jackie, on what you do, which is another reason why I go back to why is this happening on September 17th?
Because somebody's agent, whether it's Cat's agent or Butler's agent, is saying we need to get this straightened out. We need to straighten out. Here's what I would say. If I'm Karl-Anthony Towns, if I'm Jimmy Butler, I don't have to like you. You don't have to like me. We can still play together and be effective. Because I have been around the NBA a long time. And do you know how many championship teams I've covered?
I mean, Shaq and Kobe is the perfect example,
well,
right?
sure. Yeah. And that finally ended.
Right.
But, I covered a lot of Celtics teams where those guys weren't going out to dinner together for burgers and a beer after the game, and they still won championships.
I'll say something else. Jimmy Butler needs to have a good year this year.
Yeah.
He is coming off of a knee injury, and he had a hand surgery, which I know they said was minor, but he's had 2 surgeries since the spring. Jimmy Butler needs to have a really good year.
But so does Karl-Anthony Towns,
does.
though, because he got outplayed by all the bigs that he faced in the postseason.
Yeah, including Clint Capella.
And the numbers are indisputable. We just had them up on our screen, what the Timberwolves were like with Jimmy Butler on the floor and with him off the floor.
His leadership on this team was unquestioned. That's not in question.
Yeah.
How important
there are those numbers. Look at the defensive efficiency numbers.
I mean, he's one of the best leaders, in my mind, in the NBA.
Brian, before we go to potential destinations for Jimmy Butler, and we do reckless speculation here, do you believe, though, the Karl-Anthony Towns or the lack of interest in signing that extension has to do with Jimmy Butler?
We've never seen a guy not taking a max extension that's going to be offered to him. I think the real question for Karl Towns is, do you sign a 3-year extension or do you sign a 5-year extension? And there's all these things that exist now with the new rules about getting the supermax. If Jimmy Butler ends up committing to the franchise, there's a possibility that Karl-Anthony Towns then could get traded because, and this is something that the teams in the league have been sniffing out for months. It's coming to a head right now.
Right.
But Towns has been on teams' lips for months if they see that they can't coexist, that they may have to go one way or the other. And so, yes, the Timberwolves turned down anybody. There's a few teams who just stuck their toe in the water on Towns' availability at the trade deadline, and they shot him down.
Right.
But
that's smart.
The fact that they were asking shows that teams have been swimming around the water like sharks on this.
But if you're the Timberwolves, it is so smart to say, no, we are not trading him, because that's the last thing you need. Karl-Anthony Towns is already having some questions, right? Questions about Jimmy Butler, questions about Tibbs, I think,
but
as
in
well.
all honesty, if you're going to play the strategy game, They don't control Butler. Butler's an unrestricted free agent if he doesn't sign. And there's all these teams with money out there, and he could walk. If Towns doesn't sign, it's a really bad precedent, and I actually would be stunned if he didn't, but they still would control him as a restricted free agent.
Of course.
The more volatile piece is Jimmy Butler.
All right, let's go to some reckless speculation now and take a look at some potential destinations for Jimmy Butler. Let's take a look at some of these lists. Who's on your list, Brian? Let's start
first off, if you're going to have to trade Jimmy Butler, whether it's coming soon or whether it's at the trade deadline, for you to get value, it's got to be a team that Butler would want to sign with. Okay? And so you have to start talking about those teams. Now remember, Butler, it does not behoove him to sign an extension now. So even if he was singing Kumbaya with Karl-Anthony Towns, he wouldn't sign the extension
No, of course not. Same reason why Kyrie Irving didn't sign one in Boston.
Right.
So it's got to be one of those wink things, like, yes, I will stay here with you. I really
And they're
like this
bad at those, the Timberwolves.
Yes,
By the way, shout out to Andrew Unga, who pointed this out yesterday on Twitter. We just had it up, where the Lakers and T-Wolves have never made a deal, right? So we've heard rumblings about the Lakers and the Knicks, but the Lakers thing may not happen.
Well, I think three teams that pop straight to my head: Knicks, Celtics, Lakers.
Right.
Celtics,
Clippers.
And the Clippers, absolutely. The Clippers are a team that's going to be a player next summer. But the Clippers may think we may be able to sign him outright next year. The Kyrie Irving relationship, he's very close to Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
Would the Celtics be interested in there, or would the Celtics just sort of play it out? That would also be interesting if Jimmy Butler became available.